Previously on Total Death Edition.
It doesn't matter how lucky we are, how much skill we have, or how much endurance we have to complete every level in this mod. The game simply does not allow us to move forward, and I did my best.
And this time, the Cemetery of Death has already been incredibly tough in just its first 2 levels, and the upcoming 4 levels all either have the Sunflower Zombie or Twin Sunflower Zombie. 9-3 is a 2-flag level with Twin Sunflower Zombie, and the only realistic way we even stand a chance is by using Cop Cannons again, because nothing kills Twin Sunflower Zombies as fast as Cop Cannons do. It's only 2 flags long, which makes it the shortest of all World 9 levels, but in Total Death Edition, random grave ambushes of 100 zombies can spawn at any moment. I find it pretty difficult even to differentiate these levels apart, because at every level, they just throw the same stupid garbage at you, and even with Cop Cannons to quickly burst these ambushes down, you're still losing half the defense in the process. As their later ambushes contain stronger zombies, losing Cop Cannons early on will cause us to lose to the stronger ambushes. Not even Doomshroom can save us here because the giant all-star zombies require 3 explosions to kill, and there is no stalling them after using our Ice Shroom. Now of course, even if you keep your Cop Cannons alive, you have to remember to use all the Cop shots before they die in 0.1 seconds to a catapult zombie. Of course, that's something that totally doesn't require insane reaction time and precise timing. Don't even tell me otherwise. But why can't we take advantage of the design of this level? It's a 2-flag level, we can just ignore the fact we have no defense left and let our lawnmowers take out everything, then wait until the final wave and hope Doomshroom pulls through. Well, of course, since lawnmowers have limited range, they don't take out Twin Sunflower Zombies, and these guys will just keep stacking more gravestones onto the lawn. It's like a ticking time bomb. If you spend too much time not killing the zombies, then too many graves spawn and you can't even play the game anymore because the final wave will just crash your game. So since we can't stall the waves out, the only way to improve our chances of winning is to beat the level faster. The only way to do that is to plant even more Cop Cannons. Seems ridiculous, because your Cop Cannons in the front are almost guaranteed to die during a grave ambush, but you just need some help from RNGesus for that to not happen. It's fully possible to defend against a grave ambush if you react fast enough with Doomshroom and shoot your cops quickly. I know I'm not exactly doing this perfectly, but no one is perfect, and just to prove a point, I still managed to keep 5 of our Cop Cannons alive at the very least. Okay, but if you make it to the final wave and not crash, you then have to not be the idiot who spends their Ice Shroom freezing nothing. I was panicking, and that probably cost us the entire game right there, when we probably would have won otherwise, on our 4th attempt, without cheating by the way. Even more embarrassingly, even though we were only 1 correctly timed Ice Shroom away from beating the level, I would have 20 more failed attempts because I was just bad at the game. Looking back at this, it was just pure pain because I was legitimately just constantly throwing and fumbling. I don't even have the space to show you all the failed attempts I had on this one level alone. Now, even though the Imitator Cop Cannon strategy is good, Imitator Doomshroom is just easier to use because we just plant 2 of them and we can kill all the Grave Ambush zombies. That one change made it so much easier to beat the level than I thought, because now, we don't even need to use Cop Cannons to survive the final wave. I mean, surely we all know where Doomshroom is going on the tier list when that happens, right? And that marks the end of level 9-3. Oh, but you haven't seen difficult yet if we don't talk about level 9-4, which is one of the more ridiculous levels in Total Death Edition. If even a single Sunflower Zombie spawns in the first 2 waves of the level, we have to instantly restart for a better early game. This process was so tedious, we ended up spending more time restarting the level than actually playing it. Like, straight up, just hours of me pressing restart over and over again. It's a game of patience, but eventually, we do get some runs where our early game is good enough that an early restart is not necessary. Be aware that the grave ambushes in this level are extra deadly because there will already be graves accumulated by the first flag, and it's not as easy as just Doomshroom and problem solved, because there will always be a chance that a grave ambush happens in the next wave again, and now we're back to square one again. More Plants vs RNGs as I see. Keep in mind that I'm only showing runs where not many sunflower zombies spawn early on, and this is the difficulty when you're lucky. Without actual RNG manipulation, back-to-back grave ambushes are here to stay, so we have to react quickly enough with our cop cannons to keep our defense alive. But it doesn't even matter if your reaction speed is good, because Jack-in-the-Box zombies now instantly detonate when they touch a sunflower after World 9. Yeah, that explains why we have no sunflowers left. And if you thought that was bad, hopefully you didn't forget about the enraged ladder zombies. Good luck defending that using cop cannons, because you'll certainly need a lot of it to actually counter it. All you need is to get extremely lucky and lob a butter at just the right time to stop an enraged ladder zombie. I'm starting to see a certain pattern emerging right now. It's not even that relevant that we have Doomshroom here, since just using it for regular waves means you won't have it for the grave ambushes. When an inevitable grave ambush spawns, we need both Imitator Doomshroom and regular Doomshroom to counter it. Otherwise, we're just gonna die a painful death to the Gargantuar imps. By the way, I haven't even mentioned that we have to survive for almost 3 flags of this. I mean, this has to be some sort of practical joke by the modder. Of course, if you don't have luck on your side, then you can always sacrifice your lawnmowers against enraged ladder zombies. But just be aware that if you don't have lawnmowers, then the chances of you surviving giant all-stars from grave ambushes is close to none. What am I even looking at right now? And as usual, just surviving is not enough, as we also have to prevent the game from killing itself from all the gravestones that get spawned. After spending 2 more hours trying to beat this level legitimately, I couldn't even get past the second flag without crashing because sunflower zombies are just that stupid. Like, forget about having a defense against the zombies. We haven't even found a way to stop the game from killing itself at this point. This is why I can see that this level is simply impossible if you don't use some sort of RNG manipulation. And the difficulty of this level does not only call for extreme save scum. It requires the Foreseer method because we need to find the seed where there are as few sunflower zombies as possible. Yeah, we are digging deep into the iceberg of cheats for this one. Even with Foreseer, RNG manipulation, and extreme save scum, we still only managed to get 4 cop cannons before the first flag. And after a lot of effort reloading every single wave over and over again, I made it to the second flag, which required a lot of optimizing for us to get to this point with 7 cop cannons standing and gravestones only in the frontmost 2 columns. Eventually, we made it to the penultimate wave of the level, and here, I had to sack several lawnmowers because I had no more cop shots and we could not afford to spend a Doomshroom, since we needed 2 of them for the final wave. And so, does that mean we finally beat the level? Well, the game didn't crash for once, but because there were so many zombies on the screen, the game dropped a bunch of frames, so many frames in fact, the game froze and became completely unresponsive. I spent 4 hours, 4 whole hours, finding the perfect seed, manipulating zombie spawns, and playing perfectly, and then on the final wave, this happens. Yeah, I give up. We're skipping this one. Now, time for a little break from insanity. If you couldn't tell by how my cursor looks, it's Whack-a-Zombie again, and it doesn't seem to be different from the original version. We're still going to need an auto-clicker to beat this level because of how fast the zombies spawn later, so there's that, but I mean, it's nothing I couldn't handle. Well, same as the original Whack-a-Zombie, that's what I thought.
Hey yo, what the f?
Well, I left out one very important detail. I didn't expect the game to throw S100 dancing zombies and 100 twin sunflower zombies on the final wave. It took less than 10 seconds for the game to crash, and maybe the 600 gravestones that spawn here have something to do with that. The only logical thing to do here, make the auto-clicker even faster. I upped the auto-clicker to 1,000 times per second. It's so quick that the whacking animation of the hammer doesn't even render anymore. Well, in case you were wondering, of course, the auto-clicker at 1,000 clicks per second managed to kill enough twin sunflower zombies before the game crashed. It still took quite a while to kill everything because you could only click once a frame, so this was probably more than overkill for this level. That concludes our short break against the Grave Ambush Madness in World 9. But oh boy, I don't think anyone is going to be prepared for the upcoming stupidity, level 9-6. Yeah, with both Gargantuars and Giga Gargantuars on top of sunflower zombies. If you thought sunflower zombies on the first wave were bad enough, in this level, we have Jack-in-the-Box zombies on wave 1. This level removes spawning limitations on all of the special zombies, which includes Giga Gargantuars of course. At this point, I think the modder is just trolling us because there's no way they actually beat this level legitimately. Even with Cob Cannons, Giga Gargantuars are almost impossible to kill since they tank 5 explosives in this mod. Previously, we just killed them using lawnmowers because they only spawn on the final wave, but this is the first time we have to deal with them conventionally. To kill just one of these guys, we have to spend literally half of all our cop shots. We usually don't even have that many cop shots ready to use at once. And of course, we still have to deal with the grave ambushes, and spending all our reserve cop shots ensures that we die to dancing zombies immediately after. I mean, yeah, this is just, I don't even know what to say. I'm flabbergasted, I can't even describe this level of stupidity anymore with words, and we have finally reached peak difficulty in the TD mod. Forget the Giga Gargantuars. You can't even deal with all the other stuff this level throws at you because the giant football zombies are also so tanky, and you also have to defend off the jack-in-the-box zombies that kill all your sunflowers and defenses. Now mix it in with sunflower zombies, just fair and balanced as always. It's not like we even have a choice in our loadout because the other strategies suck even more this level. Gatling Piece don't take out imps fast enough, and even with Torchwood they don't even kill Giga Gargantuars quick enough, and they also suck against jack-in-the-box zombies. This is just a complete disaster. And about Winter Melons, I would say that they're somehow even worse than Gatling Peas here because of the imps from Giga Gargantuars, which are basically impossible to counter because Winter Melons attack so slowly. And their splash only affects 3 tiles at once, so they don't even put a dent into the zombies from grave ambushes. It's basically just Doomshroom versus zombies at this point. I mean, Winter Melon doesn't even have any redeeming qualities. They don't hit balloon zombies, they don't kill dancing zombies quickly enough because they're slow as hell, and they whiff against newspaper zombies. What's even the purpose of using Winter Melon in Total Death Edition? Even with Cob Cannons, this level requires some next level reflexes with your instant kills to launch 5 instants at the same time to avoid an imp being thrown. You could probably beat this if you save scum all the Giga Gargantuars into the middle lane, but knowing what happened in level 9-2, it's most likely that the game is just going to crash against sunflower zombies anyways. So I'm not going to try and beat this level. 9-7 is finally something unique for once, since it's a locked and loaded level. That's good news because it means that the modder probably had to make sure you could beat the level with the pre-selected loadout. We start with a ton of sun and some pre-built defense, but notice that the loadout has no sun producers, so these few sunflowers are all we have for sun generation. The only thing we can do is spam chompers off cooldown, because what else are you supposed to do with these plants? But anyways, since we can't plant more sunflowers, our main objective is to make sure that they don't die, which I did a terrible job at on my first attempt. And keeping all our sun producers alive is basically life or death. We won't have enough sun to spend on Gravebusters if we lose even just 1 or 2 sunflowers. Since we don't have more than 1 Doomshroom and 1 Ice Shroom on this level, any consecutive Grave Ambush is an instant game over for us. So having enough sun to bust out every single grave is a necessity to beat this level. This level appears to be easy on the surface, but it's a lot easier to lose a sunflower than you think. Even the weak zombies like newspapers are a big threat because we only have chompers, which is a straight attacker. Gargantuars are also super annoying because their imps land directly on top of our sunflowers. Aside from that, the occasional grave ambush, even with just a few zombies, can cause devastating damage. It could be giant all-stars, catapult zombies, and even more Gargantuars, meaning even more imps that can destroy our defenses. And if we skimp out on repairing our defense, we can only stall for so long with instant kills and puff shrooms before our eventual timely demise. But the most devastating zombie this level has to be dancing zombies, where one single mistake can cost 3 chompers and 3 pumpkins immediately, and oftentimes also 2 more chompers and a twin sunflower. This happening is basically an instant game over because there's no way you would recover from that. What makes this even more annoying is when dancing zombies stack on top of each other, so you don't even know if there's a second dancing zombie until it's too late already and you lose the game on the spot. But if RNGesus isn't actively sabotaging us, we can defend anything. Even imps are defendable as long as you time your instant use plans properly. Emphasis on the if, because there are just so many ways it can mess you up with the grave ambushes that spawn throughout the level. Even if you play everything correctly, in Total Death Edition, a backup dancer can suddenly appear from a grave and trample up 3 chompers. You can't even catch a freaking break, man. And perfect play is what is needed to beat this level. Gravebusters as soon as graves show up. Insane reaction speed against double stack dancing zombies. Spending 2 instant kills simultaneously against Gargantuars before they can even throw their imp. And also constantly replenishing our column of puff shrooms in front of our pumpkins to block off all-star zombies from grave ambushes. I continued my momentum well past the second flag, where I had this beautiful Cherry Bomb and Doomshroom combo to clear off 2 waves at once, but RNGesus decided to spawn a Grave Ambush right after we spent our Doomshroom, so everything went to shit immediately. But this happened close to the end of the level, so we could afford to just let Blover stall out the waves and wait for the final wave. Just Doomshroom to clean up the zombies, and that is finally game. Even locked and loaded levels are somehow difficult in Total Death Edition. This literally took 30 or so something attempts to beat. Next level, level 9-8. This is probably the easiest in the entire video, and it's pretty obvious because it's just a bunch of squishy zombies mixed with gargantuars and jalapeno zombies. Gloomshrooms are the optimal pick here. They shut up dancing zombies super quickly, and then of course we utilize the Blover slowdown to kill pogo zombies just like we have done so previously. Jalapeno zombies are the biggest threats here, but we can just spend an instant kill to neutralize them. With Imitator Doomshroom 2, I didn't see how we could even lose here, so I brought in Hypnoshroom as a mean pick. But that would backfire extremely quickly, as a jalapeno zombie somehow exploded before it was even visible on the screen. I didn't even know that was possible, and one thing led to another and our entire defense collapsed on itself like a domino. I would have actually beaten the level if it weren't for the fact my Doomshroom died to the Zombotany piece. If only we didn't have a useless piece of trash here. Well, obviously, Ice Shroom would have saved us in that scenario, so sorry Hypnoshroom, back to the Shadow Realm where you belong. Even with jalapeno zombies exploding across the lawn, this defense can still hold its own because we only really need 2 Gloomshrooms to cover all 5 lanes. And that's actually enough to make it to the final wave, just 2 Gloomshrooms shredding everything the game throws at us. Without butchering our Doomshroom on the final wave, we kill off the Grave Ambush and we just wait for Doomshroom to recharge again, and that's an easy win for us. And finally, the penultimate level of World 9. What better way to end it other than a showdown against Giga Gargantuars? The main gimmick of this level is that it removes spawning limitations on special zombies again. Only in Total Death Edition do dancing zombies spawn on wave 1. We don't even have defense in every lane, and Giga Gargantuars are already coming in. We are so screwed. We already lack damage output to take these guys down, and imps make it worse by landing directly on our chompers and taking them out instantly. And to prevent these imps, we need to spend 2 instant kills, which is just very unsustainable in the long run. It's only the first flag, and there are already 3 Giga Gargantuars, and this is a free flag level. Oh, and Imitator Doomshroom? It's not even good enough to take these big guys down. And imps get thrown to the back of the defense and eat up all our chompers. It's an absolute bloodbath. We already established that Gatling Peas, Winter Melons, and even Cop Cannons were not good enough against Giga Gargantuars a few levels prior. So that leaves us with only Gloomshroom as our damage option, which, let's say, is interesting against Giga Gargantuars. The typical staggered Gloom formation isn't strong enough for Giga Gargantuars on the side lanes, but it's enough for the middle lane if we support it with double Ice Shroom and Doomshroom. But there are just so many Giga Gargantuars. They keep coming and they don't stop coming. There's no way you can spend squashes on them all. We can only stall so much before our Gloomshrooms get smashed. Don't forget that we still have to deal with the gravestones in this level too, and we currently have no plan for grave ambushes. On the surface, this seems to be yet another impossible level, but trust me, there is actually a unique strategy to beat it, so keep watching to see what that is. The first new idea I tried was actually Flower Pot. So what you do is plant a sacrificial plant in front of a Giga Gargantuar, immediately dig it up, then plant another again after it smashes, and infinitely stall it out until we eventually kill it with Gloomshrooms. The funniest part of this is that it actually works, and you actually have to use Flower Pot, since Puffshroom doesn't recharge fast enough for an infinite stall. However, since the infinite stall only works if the Giga Gargantuars are slowed, we have to use both Ice Shroom and Imitator Ice Shroom to get full uptime on our board-wide slowdown. One problem I forgot to account for is that Ice Shroom freezes dancing zombies in the back of the lawn before they reach the Gloomshrooms, so backup dancers start spawning in the back instead, unleashing waves of Zombotany Peas at our Gloomshrooms. This was problematic enough that a few of our Gloomshrooms ended up dying even if they had pumpkins protecting them, and it made us lose the game. Well, a solution that doesn't require constant refreezing would utilize Kernel Pots instead, since they can do the same thing as Flower Pots. Then you may ask, what the hell is Garlic doing here? Well, it's to have a safe lane for some producers since both Gargantuars and dancing zombies cannot spawn in the first lane. Basically, we're doing half Gloomwalk, half Kernel Pot stall. Surprisingly, just Gloomshrooms from the side do enough damage against Giga Gargantuars in the open lanes, and it even cleans up the imps quite efficiently. But the problem this setup has is against football zombies because they move way too fast and we don't have wall plants to hold them in place. These guys have half the health of Giga Gargantuars but move like 5 times as fast. I suppose you can do the math and see where the problem is. Plus, all it takes is just one all-star zombie in lane 4 and our Gloomshroom in the front is a goner. If that Gloomshroom dies, then it's just GG, because that's the only way we could defend the bottom 3 lanes. The one way to fix this problem is with Pumpkin. It will block off regular football zombies in our empty lanes and give time for Gloomshrooms to do damage. Of course, Pumpkin also protects our lane 4 Gloomshroom from an all-star charge, and Colonel Polt's stun is good enough to buy us time to take it out. But we're not guaranteed to get any butter from Colonel Polt since it's random, so once again, we're at the wrath of RNGesus. Who doesn't love that? As much as I'd love for Gloomwalk to be viable, just having a staggered Gloom setup is better for reliability. Our Gloomshroom can still die if we don't get enough butter from Colonel Polts, but even if a Gloomshroom dies, we will still have defense in every other lane and be safe until we can repair our setup. We've got to make sure everything is slowed down at all times, so we've got Blover on top of Double Ice-Shroom, just for extra insurance against backup dancers. And I know Walnut looks redundant because we have Pumpkin already, but it's pretty important to hold newspaper zombies and football zombies in place because we can't rely on Colonel Polt to stun these guys when they move so fast. But I suppose relying on stalling plants is incomparable to having Doomshroom as an effective counter to the grave ambushes. Without Doomshroom, our defense quickly folds against the massive hordes of zombies, and even Gloomshroom's infinite Pierce can't save us because of how many football zombies there are. But even with Doomshroom, we can't put much of a dent on Giga Gargantuars. Moreover, Imps became extremely problematic since Colonel Polts don't do enough damage fast enough to kill them without the extra damage provided by Blovers. All our Colonel Polts were dying, and I realized this problem way too late. Just one Gloomshroom wasn't going to cut it either since we have to get Imp defense in 4 lanes. And sacrificing a Lawnmower to Imps is not even a good play because the Lawnmower doesn't even take out the Giga Gargantuars. And guess what? A few seconds later, the Imps are back because each Giga Gargantuar froze 5 Imps, so we're screwed again. So I got 2 Gloomshrooms in the back this time, on column 1 because Imps cannot land there. I also put Gloomshrooms on the top and bottom lanes this time, which makes the defense much better against Giga Gargantuars in even lanes. These small adjustments in our Gloomshroom placements allowed us to make it to the second flag with our full defense intact. With the additional support of Twin Sunflower, I could afford to remove every gravestone on the field, eliminating the threat of grave ambushes as well. But I couldn't anticipate that the size of Giga Gargantuars would become a problem. I placed the Gravebuster in the middle lane thinking it would be safe, but then a dancing zombie showed out of nowhere, and yeah, there goes our Gloomshroom, man. This one incident alone was enough for us to lose the game because we just lost a third of our damage output, and there's just no way to kill anything with only Colonel Polts in the middle lane. This has to be the first time we've ever lost because the zombie's actual size was obstructing our view of other zombies. We can't make Giga Gargantuar smaller, but we certainly can kill them faster by moving our Gloomshrooms a whole column forward. Not only does this allow us to kill Giga Gargantuars quicker, but having an extra Colonel Polt in every lane helps with our consistency in buttering up Giga Gargantuars. And there's also a really smart solution to the dancing zombie situation from our last run. By just planting sacrificial sunflowers in the very front, we can force more gravestones to spawn behind our Gloomshrooms instead of the front. This also temporarily stalls out the zombies, making it safer for our Gloomshrooms that get a bit more time to kill everything while removing the risk from planting Gravebusters as we're not putting it into a sea of Gargantuars. On top of that, we're adding another precaution by planting redundant Gloomshrooms on the 6th column, which will act as an extra line of defense when our first line of Gloomshrooms inevitably goes down. And you can see that extra precaution Gloomshroom coming into play after the 2nd flag, since it starts spawning Zombonis from grave ambushes after that. I imagine you can now see that if we didn't have those extra Gloomshrooms on the 6th column, we probably would have been completely cooked, but we're alive because of it. After all of that optimization, we can finally beat level 9-9, finishing off the last Choose Your Seeds level in the Cemetery of Death. Of all things, Colonel Polt was the solution to Giga Gargantuars. The last level in World 9. You didn't expect us to make it that far today, did you? Buckle up, as this conveyor belt level is the one to end all conveyor belt levels. Straight away, you may notice that we're getting the same plants from level 2-10, and even the zombies are the same because it's newspapers, screen doors, footballs, and dancers. Yeah, if you thought this was a free win, not so fast. After the first flag, it's time for ladder zombies. There's also Gatling Pea zombies, and we don't even have a wall plant. The worst part is, they are twin sunflower zombies? Sorry, what? Look, the attacking plants we have are Scaredy Shroom and Fume Shroom. How is it even possible to kill the twin sunflower zombies? You don't, I guess that's the answer, and that's why this will be the first crash of many to come. how on earth can we even beat this if we don't get infinite doom shrooms from the conveyor belt? Well, I accidentally stumbled into this completely intended feature. If the conveyor belt is almost full, planting the incoming seed packet instantly generates a new seed packet in the conveyor belt. In other words, we get new plants infinitely fast by simply keeping the conveyor belt full. That is crazy. You can do all sorts of stuff with this. Have you ever seen this many hypno shrooms? We can literally plant an ice shroom every 0.1 seconds and have the zombies stand still forever. In Total Death Edition, everything is fair and balanced once and for all. It might seem impossible to lose with this exploit, but actually, we still don't get Gravebusters fast enough to outpace the Twin Sunflower zombies. And even with Doom Shroom, since we're cock-blocked by the gravestones, each Doom Shroom can't even kill more than 2 zombies. If we can't kill the Twin Sunflower zombies, then it doesn't even matter, we have infinite plants. We die by the game crash. Yeah, literally infinite plants, and we still lose! By the way, I haven't even talked about the grave ambushes yet. You can get a bunch of ice shrooms to stall the zombies, but you still have to clean them up. Those ice shrooms are also useless as protecting our plants from getting obliterated by the catapult zombies. Now, of course, it doesn't matter if you have no fume shroom, since you can just get infinite doom shrooms from the conveyor belt to kill everything the game throws at us. But just surviving is not enough, since the doom shroom can't hit the Twin Sunflower zombies in the back. Even with victory so close in sight, just the final wave's Twin Sunflower zombies make the difference whether the game crashes or not. And that is assuming you get Doom Shroom from the conveyor belt. The conveyor belt can still give you trash as you're about to die, forcing us to spend a clogger to chump block, breaking the infinite stream of plants until the conveyor belt fills up again. By that time that can happen, you're already fully screwed against whatever you were trying to defend. Even with an infinite stream of plants, you're still at the wrath of RNGesus. But not all hope is lost yet. There are still more ways to swing the odds in our favor. By exploiting conveyor belt logic, we can get more ice shrooms and doom shrooms. Since it's less likely we get plants we already have 4 of in the conveyor belt, clogging it with puff shrooms and scaredy shrooms means we get fewer of them, therefore more of everything else. It will allow us to plant more instant use plants, but having a bunch of useless garbage clogged in our conveyor belt means we don't have any backup safety, and we can't just rely on the conveyor belt to instantly give us all doom shrooms and ice shrooms when a grave ambush spawns, because it's still random. And finally, the ultimate solution will clog the conveyor belt with 4 puff shrooms, 2 scaredy shrooms, 2 ice shrooms, and a doom shroom. The ice shrooms will buy us enough time for when a grave ambush spawns, and the conveyor belt will give us whatever we need, which will be a reliable way to defend ourselves while still getting more doom shrooms than usual. But just because we're getting more doom shrooms, it doesn't mean they're useful if they can't quickly kill off the Twin Sunflower zombies. And after all of that, it still seems like we're short of being able to beat the level because it still ends up crashing on the final wave. But the solution to this level is already in sight. It's all about our determination and our persistence. The only problem was how Doom Shroom couldn't hit the Twin Sunflower zombies because of the gravestones. If there aren't gravestones blocking the way, then we can just use Doom Shroom normally. And the secret to beating this level? It's just luck. If no Twin Sunflower zombies spawn in the middle lane, then you can keep Doom Shrooming every wave as soon as it spawns in like nobody's business. I mean, what else did you expect me to do? There is not really anything I can do with the plans I was given other than maximizing our Doom Shroom value. The most impressive part of this run was that it was legitimate, meaning no safes coming, and I just so happened to not have any Twin Sunflower zombies spawn in the middle lane for the entire level. Apparently, I was the first person who was crazy enough to sit down for 4 hours and grind to beat this level without cheating, though that's up for debate whether the conveyor belt glitch is cheating or not. One last Doom Shroom, and that's it for the 9th world of the TD mod. This means we are now only 1 world away from finally completing Adventure Mode, which Crazy Dave shall introduce to us right now. You should be aware of zombies that rise from the water, and zombie ambushes.